Folks, we make this video every year, without fail. And it's nobody's fault, I guess. These are always going to pop up. This is not going to be something that's ever going to go away. But because it's there, because it exists, because it's talked about, it gives us the opportunity to talk about it here too. For all the Pittsburgh Penguins fans that are going to go out there and get ticked off at this video, I wanted to make a statement at the beginning. 99, 98, 97%, sure. It's not 100. But I don't think you could ever be 100% sure about anything in life. So with that in the back of our minds, let's continue with this conversation here, because we now have some odds that I think are pretty intriguing to dive into. Because an article published by Elias Artyom on HabsFanatics.com goes over some of the latest odds to Sidney Crosby's next destination. The article is going to be linked in the description if you want to dive into this yourself, but there is a very intriguing conversation about odds. It's become such a hot topic that the site MOJ has officially released a list of 4 teams where Sidney Crosby could end up in the event of a trade. When the odds makers get involved, you know things are getting serious. Okay, I don't think that's necessarily true, but still, the image is posted here in the piece, and it's why we're referring to it here. The ask is, which team will Sidney Crosby be playing for during his next NHL regular season game? The Pittsburgh Penguins have an odds of 1.05. The Montreal Canadiens have an odds of 22.0. Colorado's odds are at 35, alongside of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And then the Vegas Golden Knights have an odds of 45 here too. Bruh. What in the world? If you wanted to get into some of the more decipherable numbers, if that's even a word here, Elias Artyom did include the generalized list of how everything could work out if you wanted to look at these numbers here. The question, which team will Crosby be playing for at his next NHL regular season game? The odds are as follows. The Pittsburgh Penguins have a 95.2% chance of Crosby playing with them. The Canadiens are at 4.5%. The Maple Leafs at 2.9%. So are the Avs. And then the Golden Knights are at a 2.2%. And sure, you might be looking at this list and saying, wait a minute, those odds don't add up to 100. And yes, that is true. That is the case here. It's just isolated from another. These are the individual odds as listed by the odds makers. Pittsburgh at a 1.05. Essentially, there's a 95.2% chance of whatever it is you're betting on coming true. And this is why I said at the beginning, 95%, 99%, 98%, it's not 100. And while it is very, very likely that Sid the Kid is going to continue his career and finish off his career with the Pittsburgh Penguins, if you wanted to label out the odds of teams that could get him in the event that that does not happen, I think appropriately Montreal is number 1, 4.5%. It does get a little interesting, though, when you talk about some of these other teams. The Toronto Maple Leafs and Vegas Golden Knights, featuring Sidney Crosby on their roster. That would be so interesting, I'm thinking about the Maple Leaf connection on how they always seem to be involved for the big fishes, and sometimes they get them, other times they don't. The Vegas Golden Knights are always involved in the big fishes too, but I feel like they always get the guys that they want. Hurdle, Pacioretty, Hanifin, Pietrangelo, Eichel, Stone. They get everybody. So, if they want Sid the Kid, then there's a pretty interesting opportunity for them to grab him. Now, of course, we know that Sidney Crosby is a player who defies the reasonable expectation that we have for most NHL players. Most NHL players, you would assume they are loyal to the dollar amount, they are loyal to themselves, and they want to see themselves making as much money whilst putting themselves in the best position to win. Sidney Crosby isn't necessarily like that at this stage of his career. More so, it seems like he's loyal to the jersey on his chest rather than whatever Stanley Cup odds or Montreal Canadiens hometown connection he may have. He is a Pittsburgh Penguins guy. And so, if he were to get moved, obviously Montreal is the #1 destination here because all the factors point to them. But I just don't see Vegas being in this conversation at all. Money is a main issue that a lot of people like to talk about when it comes to Vegas acquiring players and putting guys on LTIR, etc., etc. But with Sidney Crosby, it's not really about the money. The guy's making $8.7 million a year. If he heads over to a team like Vegas, then yeah, he'll get more dough. He'll have a higher take-home pay because of the state tax there, or the absence of a state tax in Nevada. But it just doesn't feel like a situation where Crosby would enthusiastically allow it to happen. Colorado, at least you can say there is that Nathan MacKinnon connection, and it's why you could bring over a guy like Sid the Kid, especially now that you're thinking about Marty Necas potentially being frustrated, Mikko Rantanen already getting sent away from the organization. That Colorado team needs a little bit of a boost, I would say. And if Sidney Crosby is an option that could be on the horizon, then okay, well, let's just wait and see what Nathan MacDaddy MacKinnon is going to be capable of with his buddy Sid the Kid on the team too. Toronto, though? Oh boy. Imagine replacing Mitch Marner with Sidney Crosby. Imagine Kyle Dubas gifting Crosby to the Leafs, the team that he was a part of before. That would be the ultimate sending-off gift from Kyle Dubas over to the fans in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and everybody else who happens to be a member of Leafs Nation. I just don't really see it happening, though. Of course, I don't think that Toronto would have the same odds as Colorado. I think they're only being tossed in here just because of the fanfare and the fan service. I think you have to remember with these odds makers, a lot of these folks aren't predicting that this is going to happen. They're just giving you the option to bet on it because they think, all right, well, we'll give this crazy idea a betting option here. Some fans are going to be maybe a little bit too deep into their beers on that night, and they're going to say, hey, Sidney Crosby to Vegas, let me put $1 in there, and if it comes true, I'll earn $1 million. That's not really how it's going to work. I think you're going to earn, what, like $40 or something like that? I don't know how the odds actually pay out here. But of course, Crosby's not going to Vegas, so all the guys who ended up betting on that end up just giving their money to the odds makers, and that's kind of how they make their due. They have to toss in some unrealistic ideas with some crazy betting amounts because it's like, hey, nobody's going to reasonably believe this is going to happen, but if somebody wants to bet on it, then we'll take the profit and we'll pocket it home. You could, of course, just bet, oh yeah, Sidney Crosby's going to play with the Penguins next season, and then it's like, yeah, well, you didn't really win much anyway. You bet $100 and you're going to earn like 5 or 50 cents or something like that. So it's not really worth it for anybody to reasonably think about that as the betting option here. You want to make things spicy. You want to go and get a bigger bang for your buck. And look at me going out there and talking about the philosophy of sports betting when I don't even do the thing myself. I promise, folks, I am not really affiliated with anybody who does this stuff. And for me personally, I'm not really on the train of sports betting. Fortunately or unfortunately, you can be the judge about that. So with all that in mind, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the betting odds being revealed on Sidney Crosby's next NHL team? Thoughts on the Canadiens, the Maple Leafs, the Avalanche, and the Vegas Golden Knights as a potential Crosby destination for next season? Do you think it's actually possible? And do you think it's going to come true? Let me know in the comments all your opinions. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.